Hello, my name is Steve Benton. I'm with the Elder Financial Safety Center at the Senior Source. I've been in the financial services business all of my adult career, and am spending my final years with the Senior Source attacking scams and frauds and financial exploitation of seniors. I've had a long career of investigation with the securities industry, managing registered reps, and I've been a securities industry arbitrator during that time. So I've seen a lot of things going on. Let's talk about what's going on in this talk. Financial safety and security as we age, elder fraud, scams, and financial exploitation. You know, the COVID epidemic is pretty much behind us, but the epidemic and tsunami of financial exploitation of seniors is having a huge effect on seniors' finances, creating havoc and causing increasing numbers of victims with heartbreaking losses. So we're going to be looking at why these seniors are so vulnerable to this financial exploitation, and then some of the things that are happening to them. The Senior Source has been around for 61 years here in Dallas. It's a nonprofit social services agency of about 55 employees serving the senior community here in Dallas. It's supported by private donations, foundations, and various grants. To give you an elevator statement there on the screen, the Senior Source is the one-stop shop in the Dallas area for older adults and their loved ones to navigate aging. We do a number of things at the Senior Source. We're ombudsman for every assisted living facility and nursing home in Dallas County, representing and advocating for the residents of those facilities. We have a very robust caregiver support group that supports people that are caring for aging parents at home. We are guardians for a number of elderly individuals where the court has asked us to take over guardianship and made them wards of the court. We have many volunteer opportunities at the Senior Source that retired people love to serve the senior community. Back in 2014, we formed the Elder Financial Safety Center. It's a collaboration of three organizations. The Senior Source, of course, is one, and the Dallas County Probate Courts and the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. Through our funding, we were able to hire 3 full-time prosecutors and 1 full-time investigator that do nothing but senior cases now. We were all 3 operating in silos addressing this financial exploitation. Now we work together. In the probate arena, where the guardians were not being inspected routinely, and now that is being done through our program, and we remove unfit guardians. And then finally, of course, the Senior Source is keeping a big part of the responsibility. We do career services because of inflation, because of lost jobs. Seniors are having to come back into the workplace. We do a lot of technology training and getting them ready to get back into the workforce. We do a lot of financial coaching and counseling as people are struggling to put together their retirement plans and dealing with decisions on Social Security claiming strategies and otherwise. We help people pay their bills, people that are struggling, missing utility payments and so forth. So a number of educational opportunities. We put on a 4-week course, Money Smart for older adults, 2 hours every week, teaching them the A to Z of financial planning, end-of-life planning, and other important topics. Well, let's talk about the impact of the Elder Financial Safety Center since our inception in 2014. And you can see there on the right part of the slide that we've served over 50,000 people in this time period. We've secured or had outcomes for totaling $177 million. And these could be recoveries, they could be benefits that were secured for individuals. Skilled is another term for education. We have educated over 60,000 people, and then 50% of the people that actually call into the Elder Financial Safety Center, we've been able to find some sort of financial outcome positively for them. And then on the left-hand side of this screen, you can see the state benefits, $3.4 million that we've secured for clients. And we've paid out over $1 million in utility assistance with our industry partners. Let's get to the main topic, and you'll see here my favorite cartoonist, Gary Larson, at the far side, and it says, "Bummer of a birthmark, Hal." And So why are seniors so vulnerable to financial fraud and exploitation? And they've got a target on their back, on their chest, if you will, a bullseye on these aging seniors. And there's a good reason for it, because 70% of all the assets in the United States are owned by baby boomers and above. The youngest baby boomer is now 59 years old. So what we're saying is 70% of all the assets are in the hands of people that are 59 plus, all the way up. And what's the old Willie Sutton question, why rob banks? Because that's where the money is. The seniors have the money, and it's at the exact time that they're beginning to slow down. They're having trouble keeping up technology-wise and starting to have cognitive difficulties. And that's a very concerning combination. Let's look further into this vulnerability, the 65 plus demographic. It is the fastest growing, and that's because of the baby boomers. They've affected everything from diapers all the way to building grade schools, colleges, and they have been the consumers extraordinaire throughout the baby boomers' life. They like to buy things, and they've spent a lot of money, and people don't realize that, again, I'm using 70%. 70% of the GDP of our country is consumer spending. And so that's a big reason why we've had several decades during the boomers' lives of having tremendous GDP. And you'll see the growth of this 65 plus demographic growing from 2009 to 2019 in that 10-year period. But look what happens by 2040. Nearly 81 million are going to be 65 plus. That's nearly 22% of the population. And then on that statement right below that, 85% actually experiencing fourfold growth between 2000 and 2040. So we have this aging demographic that it's happening because people are living longer. We call it in financial planning longevity risk. Today, a person reaching 65 has a good chance to reach 85, more than a 50% chance. That's 20 extra years. And that longevity comes from the medical advances that we've experienced, the help with the heart, the help with the lungs, the fight against cancer. And some of those breakthroughs, people are not smoking as much anymore, and there's that emphasis on fitness. So you can see that we have an aging population, and it's going to continue to increase. And if you want evidence or proof of that, let me give you a stunning statistic. In just a few short years, the manufacturing and sales of adult diapers will exceed the sale of infant diapers. That's a stunning statistic. Let's look at this big increase of 65 plus year olds. You can't just say they all do the same things together. And so this is a presentation of really three different buckets, three different brackets. Financial planners have been using this for years. The young old, if you will, 65, 74, the go-go years. They finally retired. They've had a pent-up desire to do traveling, and they're involved in all sorts of things, and they're just a certain type of bracket. Again, all of these brackets have a bell curve to them. There's certain part of that bracket that are unhealthy. There's certain part of it that is climbing Mount Everest and so forth. We even have some 95-year-olds that experiment with skydiving. But you see the middle part, 75 to 84, the slow-go years, and then the old years is that 85 plus. We call that the no-go years. But again, it's all right there. There's different needs as people age, and we've got to be aware of that. All right, the number one risk, vulnerability as one ages, is been found to be isolation and loneliness. More people are living by themselves today, individually by themselves, than ever before in the United States history. So we have this, already you're being chronologically challenged, but we used to call these people elder orphans, which probably was a little bit offensive. So now they are called solo agers. And it's a very real problem. These solo agers have this risk of vulnerability. ARP came out with a study a year or so ago that physical demands on these isolated seniors, and it was really exacerbated during the COVID crisis. The ARP study gave it the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, the impact that it has on your physical being. So again, it's the number one risk, but there's other risks, the poor memory, predictability, the tech deficiency. It's tough to admit we're slowing down as we age, but it's hard to keep up with the technological curve that's going on out there. as more and more things develop. So we have a saying around the senior source: if you thought taking Dad's car keys was tough, taken away, wait till you try to take away his computer, because that's really his social lifeline and where he gets a lot of his enjoyment, if you will. But when you think about it, this person on the computer, man or woman, is actually opening up portals into the home and letting people into their lives that they would not let in the front door. And so there is great vulnerability, and a lot of it has to do with cognition. So let's look at our next slide, the aging and finances in this combination. 1 in 10 at the age of 65 will begin to experience cognitive difficulty. And if I mentioned earlier that once you reach 65, you got a better than 50% chance of getting 20 more years to age 85. But look what happens between 65 and 85. When it was 1 in 10, by the time they reach 85, it's 1 in 3. So you see it's grown from 10% of the population to nearly 33% of the population that are experiencing this cognitive difficulty. So it's almost like all the medical advances are helping the body parts, but is the brain keeping up with it? Or is the reason we're seeing so much of these problems because people just didn't used to live this long? And so it's definitely a frontal lobe problem. Your frontal lobe is where you make your logical decisions, where your financial decisions reside. It doesn't develop until you're probably 22, 25 years old. And then you have a nice bell curve of making logical decisions, but as you age, it begins to deteriorate. It has nothing to do with dementia or Alzheimer's. It's just simply old age, disconnecting and having trouble connecting the dots, if you will. Now, let's get into some of the scams that are out there. Government agencies, do they ever call? The IRS, the Social Security, Medicare never call, they write. And so any call that you get from these agencies, it is going to most probably be a scam. And you should not be panicked by that, because they do never call. IRS and Social Security are third rail issues for seniors. It's their lifeblood, and they're very familiar with, and it's always scary when you feel like fear and panic because somebody has told you that your identity has been stolen, your Social Security number is being used, and so forth. And so Social Security in 2020 reported 718,000 cases of reported Social Security stolen numbers, and it resulted in nearly $45 million in losses. Just give you one instance of a situation. We had a lady in Mesquite, 91 years old, did not have any kids, and she got the call from the government that her Social Security number had been stolen. It had been used to rent a car, and again, how many people rent a car with a Social Security number? But you're not thinking clearly, you're ratcheted up thinking the fear and panic of your number being stolen. This car was used down in Austin in a drug deal, and a murder occurred. And so this lady was panicked that she was going to be somehow culpable for the things that went on with her Social Security number, and the federal agents were coming alongside her to help her, and they were going to open up new accounts for her, get her money safe where it couldn't be stolen, and would give her a new Social Security number. And so this went on for about 6 months, and she proceeded to pack up money in boxes at FedEx and sent them all over the country to protect her money. And she had meticulously kept the receipts of $5,000, knowing that the federal government had promised to reimburse her for all of her FedEx deliveries. We actually tried to convince her over and over again that she was being scammed, used a Mesquite detective meeting her on the front yard during COVID period in 2020. And we finally convinced her after a month's time that she was being scammed and was able to save her last $123,000. So again, government agencies never call, and it's most likely a scam. This next slide has to do with gift cards. Asking to be paid by gift cards is always a scam. Always say no. Anytime there's a mention of gift cards and it's somebody that you do not know, then it's going to be a scam. And so these are amazing how much losses are taking place there. All right, this slide talks about telephone calls primarily and now texting. We've for years been telling seniors to quit answering the phone. There is absolutely no reason to talk to people that you don't know because it's nearly always bad. The good news is that if you roll all of your calls to a voicemail or to a answering machine, 90% of scammers hang up. They want a live person to talk to. They don't waste time leaving you a message. So you're already eliminating a huge chunk of potential scams just by using a voicemail or an answering machine. It says don't take the call, make a call. If you're really apprehensive about a message that's left, that your bank account has been frozen or it's Social Security or anybody that tells you something's gone wrong out there, do not call the number that they leave. If it's your bank that's supposedly called, get your card out of your purse, out of your wallet, off the bank statement and call the bank direct, and you'll find that there was really nothing wrong with your account, credit cards, other things. So don't call the number that's left, always call directly to your provider. And so we've pretty much convinced a lot of people to do that, but now text. Con artists have invaded your cell phone now. They've got hold of your number and they're sending you text and they're saying your account's been frozen at Amazon, at Chase, whomever, and you need to click on here. Well, don't click. Never, ever click on a text that you don't understand, no matter how panicked you are. If you're really concerned about it, then again, find the direct contact and contact your vendor directly. So those are some good advice there. Let's get into the number one scam here in America today, and that's romance scams. And you'll see on this slide, they're very detailed. The losses are unbelievable, and they get your hooks into you and they won't let go. These are scammers that play the long game. They will not ask for money initially. They'll develop a love relationship and eventually ask for money, but they always eventually ask for money. But by that time, the person is in love and cannot comprehend that this person really doesn't exist or exist as they're being presented. And that's the concept of being catfished. And the young people know what that means, is hiding behind the internet and so forth. So there's two specific demos there. We won't go into too much detail, but the female demo is a demographic is 60 to 75 years old. They're widowed, divorced, single, want one last chance at love, and they're getting picked off on social media, Facebook, and so forth. And so again, that relationship develops. They never really meet this person face to face, but by that time they're in love, and it's somebody that's coming back to the United States, and they're going to build a house and live happily ever after, and they truly are in love. We used to have a saying in the 8th grade that it's only puppy love, but it's real to the puppy. And it is real to the female demographic, if you will. Now, the male demographic is somewhat different. It's typically 80 plus, been married their entire life. They've been the caregiver for their wife as she's gone down and finally deceased, and they're just lonely. And so they've been stalked at Walmart, at Sam's, and get into all sorts of problems that way. So again, romance scams are real. They're the number one loss out there, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars being wired overseas in terms of gift cards and wires and so forth. So it's incredible. All right, other frauds and scams, I've listed some of them here. The grandson imposter scams, where grandma gets a call that he's been locked up in jail and needs bail by 3 o'clock, $3,000, $5,000, and grandma goes to the bank and either wires the funds from there. It's always an overseas wire to the Caribbean or wherever, and they go to Kroger, they go to Western Union, and these have been prolific for the last couple of years. They're really slowing down now because actually these wire houses, Kroger and so forth, they're realizing their liability because anybody 65 and over that's a lady trying to wire money overseas is probably a scam, and they're just stopping them at the counter. So that's good. Lottery you won without even entering the lottery. You're just excited that you won some money, and all you got to do is pay the import taxes or whatever that's due as the money comes in. Grants are another one where you'll get an email from a supposed friend of yours that says, you know, Doris, you have to try this. I applied for a grant, got $4,000 from the government just for being a senior. And people believe that. They don't call their friend and say, tell me how it happened. They just immediately click on the link and get caught up in a scam. So the tech support scam, taking over your computer, the family emergency scam, again, this is one where, I've seen the head attorney of a law firm supposedly send an email to a young attorney saying, hey, I'm up here, I need $500 quickly, give me a gift card. And the guy, hey, it's his boss, it's the head attorney of the law firm, and find out that it was just a scam, that somebody had hacked into his email and so forth. So again, there's all sorts of frauds and scams out there. Let's go to the next slide. Probably the majority of our cases, I'd say 60% of our cases here in the Elder Financial Safety Center are unfortunately family members that moms in memory care and daughters out spending all of our money under a power of attorney. Power of attorney, financial general durable power of attorney, is a very dangerous format. You really need to know who you're trusting, because this person has the ability to do anything that you can do. You are the principal, the person that you appoint is the fiduciary, and by them spending money on themselves, they're actually committing misdemeanors and felonies. And so it's a big problem today. And so we say sword or shield. A majority of cases, family member is shielding the needy person that cannot make good decisions anymore and protecting them, but there is a certain percentage that are actually stealing the money from their own relatives. I'll just give you one story there. We had one of our cases early on in the Elder Financial Safety Center where an older gentleman was childless, needed to have 3 months of operations and rehab, in and out of the hospital and in and out of rehab and back and forth. And he had nobody to pay his utilities. That was his big fear. Who's going to take care of my house? Who's going to feed my dog every day? And so what he did is he signed a general durable financial power of attorney for his nephew. And when he got out 3 months later, his house had been sold. All of his investment accounts were gone, his bank accounts were gone, and nobody knows where the dog is. That's a true story, incredible loss, but shows you the power of a power of attorney, so you have to be very careful. So again, with that, hopefully this has helped in providing you some insight into the vulnerability of seniors as they age and what's going on out there in the areas of scams, frauds, and financial exploitation. Thank you for your time.